Linear inequalities in one variable. So number one says graph the following inequalities on the number line. And you've probably been doing this for a number of years back in pre-algebra classes and even in your early grades. So A says x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, so remember that symbol, you know, the I don't know how you were taught, but that goes after the kind of alligator thing, eats the greater value. So it says x is greater than or equal to 2. So what I would do there, I would put a solid dot at 2, and then everything greater than 2 would be to the right. So this is how you'd graph it on a number line. X is greater than or equal to 2. And since it's equal to 2, we put since it can be equal to 2, that we symbolize that with a solid closed circle. Similar to B, B says x is less than or equal to 9. So we're going to have a closed circle at 9. And everything less than 9 would be to the left. So we're going to go that way with it. Now C says x is greater than -3, not greater than or equal to, it's just greater than -3. So we're going to show that with an open circle on -3 because we're not including -3. It's got to be greater than -3. So we would go to the right. All the numbers greater than -3 would be to the right. Okay. So you can do the rest there for number one. Number two, it says write the inequality for the number line graph. So now we're given the graph. We're going to write the inequality. So I'm going to do A and I'm going to do C. I'll let you do B and D. So A, we got it at 5, and then it's going to the left. So all the numbers are to the left of 5. So I'm going to say x is less than or equal to 5. And then C, it's going to the right. That line is going to all the numbers greater than 6, and it's an open circle, so we're not including 6. So I'm going to say x is greater than 6, not equal to. Number 3 says solve and graph the following inequalities on the number line. So you solve these inequalities just like you'd solve a regular equation. We're trying to isolate the variable. So for A, I got 7x minus 5 is less than -26. So to solve for x, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So I'm going to have 7x equals -21. Then divide by 7. X would be less than -3. So to graph that, I would do an open circle at -3. And then everything less than -3 would be to the left. These numbers over there. I'll let you solve B. I'm going to do some other ones. Let me show you C. Again, we're solving for x. So my first step, I would subtract 1 from both sides. So now I have x over 2. 5 minus 1 is 4. And since x is being divided by 2, now I would multiply by 2 on both sides to isolate the variable. So that's going to be 8. Now, I specifically wanted to do this problem because it's kind of written backwards. Like if you read it, it says 8 is less than x. But remember, we're trying to graph it in the perspective of x. So if you read it kind of backwards from x, it says x is greater than 8. So I would open circle at 8, and everything greater than that would be this way. If you want to rewrite it, you can rewrite it like this. X is greater than 8 if you were to kind of reverse it back the way that it's usually written. Now let me show you D. So we solve this. We're going to subtract 1 from both sides. It's going to be 20. Divide by -5. Now here's the catch. Now I'm not going to get into the whole explanation as to why. But one thing you have to remember is when you're solving inequalities, whenever you divide or multiply by a negative number, the symbol, the inequality symbol, needs to flip. So previously, it's been showing greater than. Since we're dividing by -5 in this last step, we're dividing by -5. This symbol needs to now go this way. So now it's going to flip that way. And 20 divided by -5 is -4. So that's the solution there. So remember that rule. Yeah. And I made a little error on the last one. I forgot. Sorry about that. This was equal to. I for whatever reason didn't write it down. This should be a closed circle. Whoops. Okay. So sorry. On D, x is less than -4. So open circle at -4. Everything less than that is this way. Sorry about that on that last example. Okay. Okay, let me show you F. So I'm going to distribute this 9. So that's going to be 9x plus 18, 7x minus 10. Got to get x to one side. So I can either get rid of the 7x on the left, or I can get rid of the 9x on the right. Totally up to you. I'm going to, why don't I do the get rid of the 9x and get the x over to the left. So subtract 9x from both sides. So this side is just going to be 18. 7x minus 9x is -2x. Add 10 to both sides. Get 28. Divide by -2. And again, we're dividing by negative. So this symbol is now going to go the other way. -14. So open circle at -14. X is greater than -14. It's going to be to the right. Okay. So I'll let you do the rest. Now, number 4, I got some word problems. Do a couple of those. It says Chucky has 30 books on his bookshelf and buys 2 books per month. His bookshelf can fit no more than 70 books. Can fit no more than 70 books. Write and solve an inequality to determine how many more months of purchasing books he can have and not overload his bookshelf. So he has 30. He's adding 2 per month. So I'm going to use M for months, 2's per month. And he can fit no more than 70 books. So he has to have less than or equal to 70. And then we solve. So I would subtract 30 from both sides. Divide by 2. So I would say, I guess if I wrote this out, I would say less than or equal to 20 months. So he could, he can keep adding. If he keeps adding 2 per month, he can only continue to do this for 20 or less months. I'll let you do B. I'm going to do C. It says Philip is driving to an airport and flying to Chicago to visit his family. His first option is to buy a $280 round-trip ticket to Fort Lauderdale and park his car at the airport for $20 per day. Okay, so that's his first option. His second option is to buy a $325 ticket at Palm Beach and pay $15 parking per day. Write and solve an inequality representing the number of days Phillips can stay on vacation where the Palm Beach airport will be cheaper. Palm Beach will be cheaper. So let's set up this inequality. So let me first write kind of the expression for Fort Lauderdale. It's 280 plus 20 per day. Meanwhile, so let me highlight that yellow just so we know it's Fort Lauderdale. Meanwhile, Palm Beach is 325 plus 15 per day. But we want to know when Palm Beach will be cheaper. So this Palm Beach needs to be less than the Fort Lauderdale. In other words, the Fort Lauderdale greater than the Palm Beach. So that's how we set it up. And then we solve. So I'm going to get the variable to one side. So I'm going to subtract 15d from both sides. So I'm going to have 280 plus 20 minus 15 would be 5d, and then 325. Subtract 280 from both sides. That would be 45. Divide by 5. 9. So for Palm Beach to be cheaper, Phillips vacation needs to be more than 9 days. That's for Palm Beach to be cheaper. I could have written that in my sentence, but I was going to run out of room. Okay. All right. You do the rest.